Hello, my name is Fain, and I have worked in the animal health industry now for about 35 years. And today we are here with some 4-H students that are taking a class learning how to be veterinary technicians. And I'd like to welcome y'all being here. I hope you enjoy this. What they'd like to understand is how vaccines help to help the immune system of an animal to protect these animals against disease. So to start with, what I want to talk about is vaccination and how that relates to actually immunization in an animal. And vaccination is done with a vaccine, and it is part or a whole bug, either a virus or a bacteria. And it can be given by the mouth, orally, it can be given squirted up the nose, or it can be given injectably into the muscle or under the skin. And what it does is it stimulates an immune response. This immune response then, if the animal responds to it like it's supposed to, then that animal becomes immunized. And what that means is that it is trained to fight against diseases. The immune system is very similar to a military unit. That's the way I'm going to describe it today, okay? The vaccine is very similar to how we train this military system. Does that make sense? Yeah? The enemy that they're going to be fighting against are either viruses or bacteria, okay? So let's look at how the immune system is like a military unit, okay? The first part, the immune system is divided into 3 different categories. It has the local immune system, and the antibody immune system, and the cell-mediated immune system. Now those are the technical terms. We're going to look at it as the local immunity as being the scouts. Do you guys know what scouts are? Okay, the scouts are the first line of defense, right? They go out and they look for the enemy. They try to get rid of it if they can, but they're not, they're not the real tough guys. They're just kind of, they're kind of searching things out. The antibody system, we're going to call it the Navy, because the antibody immune system lives in the bloodstream. I want you to think about it like this. The antibody system is kind of like little boats, and they're floating around in the bloodstream, and they're looking for these enemies, these viruses or these bacteria that have gotten into the system. Okay? The third is the cell-mediated. I'm going to call them the Navy SEALs or the Rangers. Do you know what those guys are? You've heard about the Navy SEALs, how tough they are. They're really tough. They're very specific, and they go down where the danger is, right? So when we look at the local immune system, it's in the nasal passages. See the cow? They live in the nasal passages, they live in the esophagus, anything that has mucous membranes, okay? These airways have mucous membranes, and these mucous membranes grab hold of these bugs, the viruses and bacteria, and when they do, the scouts, or the local immunity, send in little army men to kill those bacteria. They do 3 things. They look and identify it, and they see it's bad. So then they try to kill it. And then the third thing they do is they try to communicate back to the rest of the body, and they say, hey guys, there's an invader, there's an enemy, and it's up here in the nose, and it's trying to get through, and if it gets through, you're going to have to be ready for it. Okay? So the local immunity tells these guys to get ready. That makes sense? Okay? So the antibody then is in the bloodstream. And again, it's like little boats, and they're floating around in the bloodstream. They see a bacteria or virus, and they kill it, or they try to kill it and get rid of it. They also remember what it's like, so that if another bug comes in just like it, it already knows how to kill it. It knows what to do to get rid of it. That's the memory system that's within this in this immune system. The third level, this cell-mediated level that we're going to call the seals, see, they're the tough guys. They live down in the tissue. They live in your lungs. They live in your organs, the different parts of your body, because if a bacteria or a virus gets past the local and past the antibody, then now it's going to go into the tissue. That's where it's really trying to set up camp. It's trying to get into your lungs so it can cause disease, right? So the cell-mediated, or the seals, they're in there fighting against it at the real tough level where these viruses and bacteria have camped, okay? Do you guys know who Osama bin Laden was? You know, the bad guy that was over in the Middle East? Did you hear the story about how the Navy SEALs went into his camp and had to go down into his cave and root him out and get rid of him? Well, that's kind of how the cell-mediated system does. So that's why we're going to call them the Navy SEALs. They will go so far as to kill the cell. If the bacteria or virus gets inside that cell, the Navy SEALs will kill or blow up that cell to get rid of it, to keep it from multiplying and to keep it from causing more disease. So that's what the body's military is doing, trying to keep you from getting sick, because every day when you're at school, if you breathe, you're going to breathe in some viruses. If your friend comes over and goes, these bugs float around. They go into your body. And your immune system, these three levels of immune system in you, fight against those invading enemies. And if your immune system is trained well, then it's easy for them to fight off. Does that make sense? Yeah? So, how do we train this military system? Say it again.
I was about to ask you that question.
No. We train it with vaccines. Okay? These vaccines are either killed or modified live, and I'll explain what that means. They can either be bacteria or viruses. Okay? They can be a part, so they can be a little piece of this vaccine or a little piece of this bacteria, which is kind of hard. If you think about it, he was talking about they're so small you can't see them, but we can still, with the technology, we can break them up and just make parts of them. Okay? Or we can use the whole bug and put it in a vaccine. What it does is it stimulates this immune response, or this military response in the body, but it doesn't cause disease. And that's important, because we're putting these viruses or these bugs into your body. What do you think would cause them not to cause disease? What?
Maybe there's something inside the vaccine that maybe it doesn't kill it all the way, but it makes it weaker.
Okay.
So that they can easily take it out.
You're exactly right. There's two ways of doing it. The way you're talking about, and the other way is they can actually be dead. Yeah.
It still helps.
And still be a vaccine. They're called killed vaccines. And killed vaccines are dead bugs. They take the virus or the bacteria and they kill it. So it's just a dead bug. And then they take that bug and put that into the injection or into the nasal spray or something to get it into your body, right? They're completely safe because they're dead. A dead bug can't cause disease, can it?
No.
But a dead bug's not quite as effective as a live bug is. Okay? If you look at it, a dead bug, if you were a military and you were training, do you ever go target practicing? Mm-hmm. You do? Do you shoot targets?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We have
Put them up on a wall and shoot a gun at them? All right. Well, that's kind of like a killed vaccine. Is the military is shooting at a cardboard target. It looks just like the enemy, and they shoot it just like they would the enemy, except even though it looks like it, it doesn't fight back. It's just like a cardboard cutout. That's like a killed vaccine. Then it can be a modified live vaccine. You know what modified means? What?
I think it means, doesn't it mean better or upgraded?
Upgraded, okay, or changed. Modified means we've changed that vaccine. We've changed it so that it doesn't hurt the animal. So we take a live bug and they figure out how to disarm it. So now the gun that it's got is shooting blanks. Okay? Can't hurt you. It's shooting blanks. So they act just like the real bug because they're alive. They move, they multiply, they act just like the real enemy that gets into your body. But this vaccine, the modified live vaccine, is shooting blanks. So it can't hurt you. Okay, which one do you think would be more effective? Now, this would be similar to, have you ever played Army out in the field where a whole bunch of you are running around and you're shooting blanks at each other? Okay. Do you think it would be more effective to train out in the field like that where people are hiding and they're going around, or just shooting at a target? Which one would be more effective?
Hiding and...
Yeah, it's more like the real thing, isn't it? Well, that's the way modified live works, is they're actually alive and moving around. Now, killed vaccines, they're good training, but to get a really good training out of a killed vaccine, you have to do it more than once. So if you just target practice one time, you're not going to be very good, is it? So you're going to have to shoot at that target again to get better and better at being trained at that, right? Well, that's kind of the way kill vaccines are. And the technical terminology is called boostering. You boost that vaccine. So you give the vaccine, and then somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks later, you give that same vaccine again. So now the body's immune military system has trained against it once, and then 3 to 6 weeks later, it trained against it again. So now it's better, right? Because it's seen it more times. It knows more about how to get rid of that bug. Some vaccines you have to do even more often. There are vaccines that you have to give over and over and over again to get the kind of results or the kind of training that these things need. So let's look at, how do you think that each branch of this military immune system is going to train? They train against different things, okay? The local scouts, the ones that are up in the nasal passages and up through the throat in that area, they train the best with intranasal vaccines. And what it is, they put it in a syringe and they squirt it up the nose. And that puts these little bugs up in the mucous membranes that have been disarmed, right? They can't hurt you. They're either dead or they've been disarmed. They go up there and the little scouts come out and they look at it and they figure out how to kill it and they gobble it up. And they're trained then to do it when the live stuff comes in. So they're better trained to go against these real bugs, and they see them naturally, right? The antibody, or the Navy, how do you think we get those into the bloodstream? How?
Maybe if you give it a shot, like if you give it a shot in the arm, if it's in the bloodstream, maybe you could go somewhere where blood runs.
Where blood's at. So you have to give an injection. Exactly. If you give an animal an injection, it goes into the bloodstream. And it takes those viruses or those bacteria to the bloodstream. They can be either killed or they can be modified live. The antibody, the Navy will train against either killed or modified live. Doesn't matter. It'll train either way. Now, it'll train better against modified live, but it does train against killed also, right? So then if you get to the cell-mediated, the seals, these are the tough guys. So if you see, you know how tough these seal situations are, right? What do you think they like to train against? The targets or the field people? The field people. They sure do. The Navy SEALs will train against live opponents. And that's the same way with vaccines. If you want to get a cell-mediated immune response, you need to use modified live vaccines. That make sense? Okay. Now there's one other situation that's a little bit different than the way we normally build immunity in an animal. That's the baby calf. When a baby calf is born, it has no immunity at all. Okay? It doesn't get immunity from its mother while it's still inside. When it comes out, it has to get colostrum. Do you know what colostrum is? What's colostrum?
I think.
You don't know? Okay, no problem. Colostrum is a cow's first milk. So when the cow first has a baby, it puts out a really thick milk for about a day and a half, and that's colostrum. So what happens is the cow builds immunity in her system, and then she, right before she has a calf, she takes these antibodies, which is the Navy, right? So she takes her Navy and she puts it into her milk. All right? And then the calf is born, and the calf then drinks the mother's first milk, and when it does, these little antibodies of this little Navy goes down the throat, and for the first 12 to 24 hours, the stomach of that baby calf is open with little pores so that these boats can flow through into the bloodstream. Okay? After about, really after about 18 hours, they start to close up so you don't get good immunity. So the quicker the better on colostrum. But once this little Navy gets into that calf, floating around in its bloodstream, it'll stay for about 1 to 3 months, depending on the bug, or depending on the antibody or the Navy. And injectable immunity, if you inject a baby calf with a vaccine, it's not going to do much good because their immune system's not mature enough yet to really build immunity. So it has to get that first Navy from its mom. Okay? The only other way that a baby can get some protection is through intranasal or oral. What kind of immunity is that? What is it?
Scouts.
The scouts, exactly. We can give them scouts early on because what it does is it trains those mucous membranes to fight against something that might come up. We sell one of these intranasals called Enforce 3, and it comes in a little bottle, and you squirt it in each nostril. It goes up in there, and it builds up that baby calf's immunity. You can also use it in older cows and calves also. But for babies, those are the only two ways that they get any kind of immunity. So, as we look at it, bacteria and viruses are like enemies. Okay? They enter the cow or the calf, and they attack down in the tissue. If the immune military has been trained properly, then the animal has a much better chance of fighting off the disease. Does that make sense? You have any questions?
How do you get maybe something for the seals to fight?
For the what?
How do you inject? Do you have to inject to get something for the seals to fight as well?
That's you inject the modified live viruses.
Also,
You do. You just like we sell one called Bovishield Gold, and Bovishield is injected into the baby calf or the cow, either one, and it goes. Once it's injected, it goes to the bloodstream, and then if it's a killed product, then it just pretty much stays floating around in the blood. But if it's a modified live vaccine, it actually will then go down and train those seals down there in the tissue level, because it's just like the real bug, except it's shooting what?
bugs.
Why is that?
Because it's weaker and it's medicine.
And it makes it safe, yeah. So it doesn't cause disease in the animal. because it's been fixed, not to cause disease, but it's live, so it acts just like the real bug. So now, later on, the animal's been vaccinated, and let's say 6 months from now, that animal goes out and breathes in one of these viruses. And the virus goes into the system, it gets into the bloodstream, and it goes down to the tissues, to the organ, gets down in the lungs. Then this bunch of seals are sitting there waiting for it. They've already seen that bug. They already know what it takes to kill it. So now that the Navy SEALs are sitting there waiting, they go, we got you. And that way the animal doesn't get sick. Even though it comes in, because we get bombarded every day with bacteria and viruses, and our body continuously has a little war going on inside of itself. And that's what helps to keep us from getting sick. Now, if you get stressed out, does anything stress you out? You ever get really, really tired? Not get enough sleep? Yeah? Or it gets really cold weather, and so your body kind of feels tired. Right? That's called stress. And if that happens, then your immune system gets weaker. These little Navy SEALs and these or Navy and the SEALs, they get weaker because they're not getting everything they need, and that allows them, these bugs, to grow faster than what they can take care of. That happens in baby calves. Take a baby calf and they can be even well vaccinated. They get way too many of these bacteria, and they get a combination of a really cold spell comes through, and they get stressed out, and it's really cold, so they're not sleeping quite as well as they should. And the next thing you know, they've gotten sick. And that's when, what Morel said, that's when you got to use antibiotics, right? Antibiotics actually kill the bugs. Vaccines build up the immunity so they can prevent the bugs. Mm-hmm.
One more question, I think. Is there like a specific number of cells and specific ages or animals of counts?
Of cells in their body? No. Not that we know of anyway. But there are, on the cell mediated, on the seals, they each one have a different duty. Okay? So they go and actually seek out the kind of bug that they need to fight. I said they're specific. What that means is that they know exactly what kind of enemy they're supposed to go attack and figure it out. And there's a whole bunch of different ones. So some of them might fight off the IBR virus, and some of them might fight off the BBD virus, and some of them might. They name these viruses these big, long names, but then they shorten them down to 3 or 4 letters. Anything else?
Well, thank you for your time, and we appreciate you coming and explaining the kiddos how vaccines works.
Thank you very much.